Welcome artists, artists, and art appreciators. My name is Regina, or Art of Lore, and thanks for coming back to my channel. So I like to draw and paint and sculpt and all that fun stuff, and today we're going back to Blender to do a 3D model, or rather, to dress up a 3D model. So you guys know that I like making dolls, and I sculpted this character with the idea of her being kind of like a prototype of a doll. I think I'm going to do that more in Blender from now on, so that I can kind of map out my ideas and either sculpt them in real life or just kind of decorate them and dress them up in Blender. And so I decided to start by creating some ideas for how I would dress up this character. And I also created some polls on both my YouTube community tab and my Tumblr. And I had people vote on like which character they like. I just described the description of what each one would look like. And so yeah, my followers chose how I would dress up this character. They didn't get to see the pictures though, so sorry if you voted and the pictures turned out different than how you expected they would. Yeah. So anyways, I actually made this cat girl doll using a tutorial from someone called Brand Sculpts on YouTube. I followed a lot of tutorials since the last Blender video that I did, which was the last Blender video I did was pretty much off the cuff, completely random, trying to figure out how it worked. I didn't know how it worked at all. And I followed a lot of tutorials. I made a couple of smaller pieces, and I got to various stages with sort of each piece and just kept trying to build my skills. So I made this sculpt a little while ago, and after I had finished a different one, I went back to it and I decided to do this whole dress up thing and make it into a video for fun. As you can see, I have these 3 cat girls, which I described as, I think a punk cat, and then a angelic flowy black cat, and a tabby cat that was more librarian-like. And people actually voted. I was surprised. I really thought that the punk white fluffy cat would win, but a lot of people voted for a tabby cat that was dressed in a sort of librarian-esque fashion, which is exactly how I described it. So I decided to go with that one because everybody voted on it. I think it was actually pretty close between the Tumblr and the YouTube, but I put the results together. I think 2 of them actually might have tied on one of those platforms. So if you like what you see and you're interested in watching the other characters be designed or participating in the polls or anything, consider subscribing. Please like the video and comment because, that boosts you up in the algorithm and all that. And if you want to support me, I have a Ko-fi page or Ko-fi, I don't know how it's pronounced, and you can donate some there. I also take art commissions. If anybody's interested, you can email me or contact me through one of the various social media platforms. So on to the doll and putting together the sculpt for the clothes. So like I said, I'm using the method shown in the Brand Sculpts tutorial, which obviously I'll link below. Love those tutorials. They were really helpful. I basically just copy the model that I already have. So I have a model of the character's body, and I copied a lot of the vertices that already exist, and I just adjust them slightly to make a skirt. And there's also a couple special extra tools that you can use. For example, there's the solidify tool, which helps, it essentially makes the flat planes of the clothes into more 3D, into a proper model instead of just being a flat 1D thing. So you can adjust the thickness of the fabric based on the solidify. Also, just in case anybody doesn't know anything about Blender, there's that solidify feature, and then subdivision is a feature that you'll see on most of these because it basically just takes all of these little squares, which I spent a painstaking amount of time making everything as square as possible. I'm not super good in Blender, but one of the most important things that they say is that you need to kind of keep all of your little pieces of your project in mostly square form if you're going to use a posing tool. As you can see, the character is like mostly in a T-pose for a lot of this, but she has a armature rig that is allows me to pose the character in a couple different ways. It doesn't work perfectly, but it works a lot better if you have mostly grid or grid-like like squares between the vertices. As you can see, I made this top layer. It's going to be like the jacket, like in the sketch. And so I made it a little bit like thicker using the solidify feature. But yeah, each of the like main pieces are basically made through the same way, where I just go ahead and use parts of her body, like copy them, set them to a different layer, and then use the solidify feature to make them like actually thick like clothes. Yeah, I learned so much from the previous project where I was working on a pony. If you follow me on Tumblr, you'll see the pony, and I might have put her earlier on in the video, but that project I made a sort of simpler character, which is just one of the My Little Ponies, and I made like a little 3D model of her, and she was a little bit easier because I didn't have to worry about like hands or anything like that, whereas in this model there's just a lot more complicated things because first model was very cartoony. I'm also I think mirroring most of these. Yeah, for sort of ease of sculpting, I mirrored over obviously both halves of her body and both halves of her shirt so far, but you'll see later on I sort of split the parts of the shirt in order to make them not like 100% mirrored. Because I want her shirt to look like it's actually overlaying itself. Like it's buttoned up and one half of the shirt is laying on top of the other half, and same for the jacket, so I'm just putting a little like piece on top. I think it really adds to the like little amount of details. I'm thinking of this character as like this project as like a doll that I'm making and that I'm just dressing up. You guys know that like I like to make dolls, and I've been thinking for a long time that like I would love to make a 3D printed doll, obviously. And as you can see, this is just a 3D model, and she doesn't have like, you couldn't 3D print her into a doll because she doesn't have joints or anything. But that is one of my plans, is to take 3D models like this, or maybe even this exact 3D model, and add the sort of like joints, and like someday, eventually, maybe get it 3D printed. I'm not exactly sure how. I do have a friend with a 3D printer who's offered maybe to like print one of my 3D pieces, which I would really love, although I don't want to, take advantage of their generosity too much, so it probably would just be like one piece. But that is the goal in the future, to be able to 3D model something, especially now that I've gotten a bit better at it. The first video is a little bit cringeworthy to look at now, because I've just done a lot of work over the past like 2 months in Blender to try and figure out a lot more things about it. I think I've gotten a lot better. If you're, an absolute pro at Blender, you might think that I'm making some rookie mistakes or something, but I think if you just work at it, it's really one of those things where you just improve when you work at it. I know that sounds kind of that's not like unique advice or anything, but here's me just saying, if you want to do something, you just gotta do it a lot. And it kind of sucks because you know that, like, it's not that good the first few things you make. Like, the reason it took me so long to learn was because I just kept stalling out on different projects. I actually started this cat girl before I started some of my other sculpts, but she was, like, so complicated that I had to try and do something simpler first. And it's a good idea to start with something simpler, but it is true that if you go for something that's pretty hard early on, it does teach you a lot. You can 3D model, like, a ball fairly easily, but, like, it's not going to teach you the same as if you try to 3D model, like, a full body, essentially. And I wanted to get like all of the details, like, you know, here you can see me doing the earrings. And I adjusted these a lot. I still don't know if they like fully go with how the character looks. But yeah, they changed a lot. I did a lot of kind of like sketch sculpting. I'm just sculpting things and seeing how they worked and everything like that. Yeah, doing the brand sculpt tutorial that taught me how to do these like lines that you can bend and make like, you can make them into tubes and you can bend them around. I think I mentioned in one of my previous, I only have one Blender video. So I mentioned in my last Blender video that I'm not very good at following tutorials. So I will say that like the brand sculpt tutorial that I followed I really appreciated because it was very intense and went into a lot of things. And that was very helpful for me as somebody who kind of, I have trouble not knowing everything there is to know and only doing like small segments of a piece. So sometimes like tutorials where they do ask you to do like a very simple thing, like I have a worse time following that because like I don't understand. There are just so many buttons and I don't understand all of them. And like I want someone to like tell me what all the buttons do instead of just telling me like what buttons to press. That's just my vibe with learning. Yeah, I did some basic colors. I at least know how to make the materials and the colors. And then I used this Blender add-on that gives you all of these materials in order to get like the gold and things like that. I think the glass and the glasses also comes from that materials add-on. It's a real lifesaver, the materials add-on. I like to make sure I'm using mostly, I think procedural is what they call, like procedurally generated things, meaning like, usually I try to use things that aren't like just a PNG of something because it's a lot harder to edit the colors and sort of customize it. But for the fabrics, I think I did use, like the one that I'm adjusting right now, is one of the fabrics and probably not one of the procedurally generated ones in Blender. But I was able to adjust the colors enough to like customize it. And the jacket, by the way, there's like sort of suit jacket looking thing, which maybe looks a little bit more formal than I meant it to. It's actually based off like a sweater that I have. Like I have a cardigan that's dark red and exactly like that. So when I send like a character in like a librarian outfit, I don't really know what people expected or if people think that this style is cute, but like I was just thinking of that cardigan that I have and basically made the entire character based off of that. I mean, I think she's cute, so there's that. So what I'm doing here is preparing to do the coloring for the body, which involves UV unwrapping, which is something that I did for my last project. I just didn't know how to do it efficiently and like really what it meant. Like I don't think I knew at the time that you could sort of adjust the UVs to like the proper shapes, but I did know how to do that now. So like, for example, I made the UV section for the face much larger because I need to have more details on the face. And the coloring the face it starts out a little weird and then it gets a lot better over time. So you'll see that here in a second. She starts looking like she has a very, very weird facial hair going on before I add in even more colors. And I said she would be a tabby cat, so I'm going with that. I'm kind of glad because it allowed me to add like a lot of more detail than if I had just been like, oh, it's a black cat or oh, it's a white cat. Like I pretty much painted her whole body. It's using the same process, like I said, that I learned in that previous tutorial that I watched, but using a lot more of it than they show in that tutorial. Like it's just a lot more intense and all over the body. But it didn't go too badly, except for one thing, which I will mention in a minute as we get to it. For now, I'm just showing you the face. I was still figuring out the mouth. I'm still not sure how I feel about the mouth. I don't know if it's clear from looking at this doll. Maybe someone watching this would call this out earlier in the video anyways, but This doll is based off of Pinky Cooper, like, in a lot of regards. I mean, it's not, like, 1-to-1, but I think it's clear enough from the face that I took some inspiration from the design of the Pinky Cooper doll. And originally I had her be a lot more cartoony. She's a little bit more like anthro. Her hands are like more realistic than the Pinky Cooper doll, but the inspiration from the face definitely came from Pinky Cooper, which is one of the only like anthro dolls that has ever come on like the market like properly. And she wasn't like that popular. But even so, she has a bit of a, one of my friends described it as uncanny valley. She's a little bit uncanny valley. There's something about the like only having a bottom lip thing, which is something that the Pinky Cooper also has, that I'm still not sure if I like. A lot of like anthro characters, if you know you've been in like the furry, looked at any furry art, been in the furry community, you know that a lot of anthro characters just like don't have lips, and I don't know if I should have just gone with that, but I kind of did give her a bottom lip. I think I make it a little bit smaller or change up a little bit around it, change the amount of definition it has later on. But in the end, I'm still not sure if I should have gone with lips or just not gone with them at all. I do think that this like color of fur, this like sort of grayish brown works pretty well with it. It sort of works better also than if it had been a black cat or a white cat. Maybe because it is closer to like an actual skin tone. I tried to make it like, I tried to make the brown look grayish, like a tabby cat, but also it looks sort of close to maybe like a real human skin tone, and I don't know how I feel about that. Maybe that adds to the uncanny valley of it. But like, I try to make all the painting markings similar to an actual cat. So there's that. I thought it was kind of fun. I painted the whole thing, even though most of it's not going to be visible because she has a skirt and a jacket with full sleeves, but I wanted to do it anyways. And then now here's the problem. So if you look very closely at the bottom where it says image, there's a little asterisk. So here's the thing that I did not learn in the tutorial, or did not pay attention to it anyways. If you like open and then go back into and out of the texture paint mode, it doesn't save, even if you hit the save button, even if you hit file and then save, it doesn't save the texture painting when you go out. You have to go to the bottom and hit image and then save it there. So you briefly just saw all of the work that I did disappear, and that's because I didn't save it. I didn't know that you had to save it. So basically I had to go in and redo everything. So that's why I didn't have video of me doing the eyes either, was because I felt really bad. I like stopped doing this project for several days, and then I ended up not recording me redoing pretty much all of the body, except for like a small portion of the face, because I didn't realize that I had to save it in a separate section. I hit save all the time. I just didn't know that you need to hit image and then save. I mean, I think that the eyes turned out good, and eventually, you know, I like redo everything on the face. I redo like pretty much all the stripes. And I had that video footage. I just didn't take video footage of me redoing everything. That's all. And here at the very end, this is just what the tutorial said to do for setting the stage. And this is like setting up the scene so that you can get a nice render and everything like that. And also little like spotlights. You gotta put in your little various lights. It's like a 3-point lighting is what he showed us how to do. And you've also got to set up your camera rotation. So instead of the character rotating, the camera actually rotates around the character. I think it helps the computer probably with the rendering speed and everything like that. And with that, we're pretty much just about done. I've got to, you know, unhide all of her clothes and everything and hit render, which takes just a couple of minutes to render everything. And here's the finished character, I guess. I still think of her as sort of like my little doll. I learned so much doing this project. It's truly insane how far I feel like I've come in a very short amount of time. And yeah, the tutorials that I found here on YouTube were just super helpful in teaching me how to use Blender and everything like about this. And I feel like she's definitely looks like better than I could have imagined that I would be able to do like a couple of months ago when I made my last video. So thanks for watching, and like and subscribe and everything, and I'll see you guys next time.